The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to you cordless. It's Thursday night, November 20th, 2025. It's 9:01 on the East Coast of the United States. 6:01 on the West Coast, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 8:01 Central Time. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 296. Mark your scorecards, because that means that right after Thanksgiving, we're going to do number 300. I'm going to get to that in just a second. So we have guests tonight. We have what I call a double show. That's that in Mexican, that would be double. Because I'm really good at amusing myself. I don't know if you notice this. So our guest tonight, Tim Conway, our old friend, former executive editor of Hustler magazine. He's joined us for the first half, and we're going to talk about, well, basically crap. That's what we're going to talk about, because he's had a long day, I've had a long day, and we're just here to entertain each other. That's the first half of the show. Part two, we have Jarrett Knott. He's an author. He's written 2 books. It's a series now called Tiny Blunders, Big Disasters. And the whole premise of these books, it's about history, obscure little things that happen in history that had enormous consequences. Now, the first book came out 5 years ago, and I bought it even before I was doing the show. I bought it right away because that's sort of the whole premise of this fascinates the crap out of me. We've been trying to get this guy on for several months now. And his second book in the series came out just last month. He was scheduled to come on Tuesday. And once again, I mentioned this last night. Apologies about the fact we did not do a show on Tuesday. We were supposed to have 2 guests on Tuesday, Jarrett Knott and Michael Harrison. Harrison, the publisher of Talkers Magazine, he called in sick. He couldn't do it. We did the interview with Jarrett Knott on Tuesday, but it was so screwed up because of severe technical problems, we had to edit it. I think that's something, I don't know if this means anything to you folks, has made the news about the fact that Cloudflare, which is an infrastructure provider for a good portion of the internet, and we use it too, was having technical difficulties, and it seemed to screw everything up. I don't know if that's what happened here, but anyway, we had to edit the interview to take out basically 2 3-minute gaps in it where nothing happened, where we dropped the signal drop basically. So anyway, we did that, and so we're going to play that interview for second half tonight. We don't edit interviews. I've said in the past now, for technical reasons, mostly because I don't want to bore you if we have problems connecting, we tape most of the interviews now ahead of time, but we do not edit them. Someone said to me, well, no, you tape them. You can edit them. It's great. No, I don't want to edit them. I don't want to edit them. It takes too much time. I'm lazy. I'm old. I don't want to do it. I just do, and this is supposed to be a live show. So we tape interviews and we just run them as is. Whatever happens, happens. But I didn't want to make you wait through 6 minutes of absolutely nothing. So we edited this interview, and we're playing it after Tim gets on pontificating about the 1980s or something. So at any rate, no phone calls tonight. Too much going on. No Gymcast. Wait for Monday. Oh, and yes, we're doing a show on Monday. Now it's Thanksgiving week. We're taking the rest of the week off, but we're doing a show on Monday. Our guest is going to be Dr. Gilda Carroll. She's been on the show before. Second appearance, psychologist, charming woman. I thought she was a good thing to put on before Thanksgiving. Her latest book is called Real Men Don't Go Woke. And we had a great time talking to her earlier this year, and so she's coming back. And then we're off for the rest of the week, and then we'll be back on Monday, December 1st, and on Wednesday, December 3rd, we're doing our 300th show. Don't know what we're going to do yet. We'll have jollies and stuff like that. And speaking of jollies, Here's Tim Conaway in 12 seconds. Yes, it's you. It's you.
Ho, 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 ho. And I think you know what I mean by that.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. How you doing, my friend? You look
Well, pretty good. Pretty good.
coming
Well,
from Northeast Minneapolis there, aren't you?
yeah, it's somewhere up in this area.
Northwest, excuse me. Yeah,
Northwest, yeah.
somewhere up there.
Yeah. Been screening a lot of doing vision screening in a lot of the elementary schools in this general vicinity, and having to get up at dark o'clock to get ready and go out. And I usually, it's the sun has been up for quite a while before I crawl out of the sack. So it's tough getting up. And I think of these poor little kids who have to get up that early and get ready for school and get dressed, except the ones who wear their pajamas to school.
Because it's fashionable.
Or whatever reason. I'm just trying to think of, what happened to somebody who showed up at St. Lawrence Catholic elementary school in pajamas when I was a kid. That the nuns would have had a lot of fun with that.
They would have been sent home.
Well, but I mean, that kid would have been forever the target of nun sadism. So, yeah.
And everything I've heard is that that's a very real thing. My wife went to Catholic school, and she said, yes, they're sadistic as hell.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, So these poor kids, but they all seem chipper and stuff. Always surprised at how fast our process is. Fast and easy. They just have to sit in the chair, and we have a machine that does all the work.
So. Well, I have two comments there. First of all, everyone talks about giving back, and you actually do it. So I admire you for that. Mm-hmm. And then you said fast and easy, and I think that kind of describes you too.
Doing. Yeah.
So I sent you as usual. Is there anything you want to talk about tonight? You wrote back. You said you want to talk about LBJ's penis, and that's fine. First of all, I have some news about LBJ. We had a guest on last week who was talking about this, and I think you know that as a generalization, it appears that as a person, LBJ was an asshole. That's pretty much it. And he would whip his giant penis out in the Oval Office just to show people, to impress them, apparently.
Right, yeah. Yeah, he nicknamed his penis Jumbo. He had quite a lot of meat there. And one of the things that I, uncovered was that he used to make it just his male staffers, but he would invite them to go skinny dipping. And then, he would go around and point out the smallness of their units and brag about Jumbo and stuff. So it was a great source of pride to the man. And he never hesitated to share his largesse with.
And then you also mentioned this reason this came up is because there's one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims is saying he had an extremely small penis.
Well, not only small, but she said that it was shaped like a lemon. She said it was about 2 inches long and shaped like a lemon. So we're trying to picture that. There had been other reports that it was egg-shaped, but this person said, no, it's more like a lemon. So you picture a 2-inch lemon extending from this guy when he gets his massage and happy ending. But that explains a lot about this guy. We're hoping the autopsy photos are released.
Do you think that makes guys like that perverts? Do you think that's one of the contributing factors?
No. I mean, it may cause an odd fascination with his own unit because of the weirdness of it. But no, the pervert part, it's hard to tell where that bit comes from. All guys want to have sex with somebody. Most guys want to have sex with women. Some men want to have sex with other men, but are all drawn to having sex. And I heard this report on the radio today as I was driving along in early morning traffic that some reports says 1 in 3 American women have been subjected to sexual harassment or abuse. And I'm thinking, well, okay, guys want to have sex with women. So, and it's kind of a natural thing. I mean, we are supposed to survive. We are supposed to want to have sex with women. And so, a guy oversteps these new lines of, oh, you can't do that. You can't cross that. You can't, you can't be a basic human being. And, but yeah, the pervert part, I don't know. Some people are born bent, and there's no doubt about that. And then some people, it's the conditions that they grow up in, and what they see here.
But I do have to mention, though, the thing about you're talking about, you're right, that all men want to have sex, and then some get accused of harassment or whatever. One of the problems here, and I don't care if I get crap for saying this or not, is that one of the problems that women have is that all women assume that all other women think exactly the way they do. And the problem with that is that if you're a man, you know this. It's not one side. When it comes to courting, it's not one size fits all. Not all techniques work on all women. So you end up trying shit, and maybe it's like what some women find attractive repulses some others, and you never know.
Yeah, until you come up against that, and and you get scored for life for using your usual technique out there. Yeah, there are women who like to have sex.
Oh yeah,
and women who want to have sex. There are women who will make the first move and stuff, but we never hear about that. We only hear that men are dirty, nasty creatures, and all they think about is sex. And that's not true. We think about sports and betting.
And I remember reading in GQ used to do these annual surveys, and they asked a bunch of women what they thought of anal sex, and only 4% of the women said they liked it. And this is not my personal experience. This is my talking to my female friends. Very few women like anal sex, but the women who like it really like it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll just say, yes, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So at any rate, what happened last week is there are two things. I actually did a story during the Gymcast about the fact that I pulled this up here. Adolf Hitler supposedly had what was called a micro penis too. And he's kind of bent.
Yeah, one nut in my. Well, I heard back in the day, and we couldn't confirm this, but back when we were doing Hustler, we did this little piece, kind of one page, but we heard that Hitler liked to lay under a glass coffee table and have a woman take a shit over his face. Now, not directly on him, but
on the glass.
Yeah, on the glass.
Uh-huh.
So we sort of recreated the great moments in Nazi history in a photograph.
You did this?
Yeah.
And that's the reason I have you on the show.
Yeah. So he was a twisted dude. And they said, he also only had one ball, and he had, so he probably died a virgin. Well, he probably, couldn't get a hard on, ejaculate or anything like that. He never came to true manhood, but he did get into some weird shit.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to repeat the question. So does not coming into manhood make a guy want to conquer Europe? I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that, you're trying to make up for it some way.
Yeah, right.
And that's it. Hitler was a goofy guy. My friend Mike Sheeter, who wrote screenplays, had worked up a storyline. He hadn't done a screenplay, but it was like young Hitler. Hitler was in sort of a prison camp after World War I, and it was it was a place where the prisoners of the Allies who had mental problems were, and saw he saw a psychologist who happened to be a Jew. So Hitler was wacky before all the other stuff started, but somehow he had that charisma, which is odd. I mean, you look at the guy and you read about him and stuff, but he had this charisma, and so he was able to rouse all these followers, and he made the beer hall putsch in 1923,
right?
And which was not it didn't happen on January 6th, but it was a January 6th kind of event, except he was actually out at the head of it, and he went into prison, and then he wrote Mein Kampf, which originally had some long title about my struggle. Mein Kampf means my struggle, but my struggle dealing with the incompetence and stupidity and idiocy of the and everyone who's read the original German, unedited German version of it, which was the first version published, says that it was full of typos and grammatical errors, and a lot of it was gibberish that it made absolutely no sense. And yet this guy somehow, comes to the top of the ranks. When he got out of prison, he, was able to run for office, and when he became chancellor, he also owed about 5 million, whatever they were, Deutschmarks or something, in taxes from the sale of his book. But when he became chancellor, he forgave that debt.
Yeah.
And so so it's the guy was weird in a whole lot of ways, having nothing to do with his one ball and tiny penis.
I'm fascinated with Nazi architecture, and I don't know if you know this. One of the very few Nazi buildings left is the grandstand at the Nuremberg rally grounds in Nuremberg, where he used to. And the thing is, you're in TV presenting. You understand how this works. They had like 100,000 people there. It's like these rallies were unbelievable, and so the place where Hitler actually stood to give his speeches is still there. You can now. The amazing thing is, it's kind of this tiny little lost fact. You can go stand on the spot, but they raised the floor of that little podium 2 feet, so you can't actually stand where Hitler stood. Believe it or not, they did that. The Nuremberg did that. So you're not really standing where Hitler stood, but that's the spot. And it's like 4 football fields worth of like people there. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah,
they did know how to do this. I mean, it's like they were, when it comes to presentation, man.
Oh yeah. Well, they created these enemies of the state, the people that were responsible for the fall of Germany, and German pride, and all kinds of stuff that might sound familiar today to some people, but and there were a lot of people that rallied around that. Germany was ruined by World War I, and and it had been a proud, industrious nation up to that point, and so just the right stuff fed into the people at just the right time, and you get this incredible result.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. I want to go back to LBJ though. So a week ago tonight, excuse me.
That's a long topic tonight.
Yeah, it is. I know, but still, we got stuff. We got it going on. We do. James Bradley, the author, was on. He's the guy who wrote Flag and Stuff of Our Fathers, made into a Clint Eastwood movie. Fantastic. The guy's just interesting. First of all, he's had just such an interesting life. Unbelievable. But at any rate, he's talking about, I don't know how we got on the subject, but almost in passing, he talks about the fact, I know what it was. I asked him, I said, what happened to LBJ after he basically kind of fell apart mentally. I don't know if you're before he died. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And Bradley said, well, it's pretty obvious he felt guilty about killing JFK. And I said, like, what? Now, I've heard these stories before, but he said this in such an offhand manner. I said, do you know something about this? And he said, yeah. He said, I talked to Roger Stone, and Roger Stone told me he asked Richard Nixon point blank what happened with LBJ, and Nixon told him right to his face. He said, well, we both wanted to be president, but I wasn't willing to kill for it. That's, there's been this rumor's been going on for years. Now, the way I understand it, what really happened, supposedly, the rumor is LBJ didn't plan that murder. It's just he knew about it and didn't stop it. That's supposedly what happened. But still, I mean, he did. People don't know this. He left office in '68 or whatever it was, and he really mentally, he was basically like gone. Yeah,
well, it was probably a reaction to swinging Jumbo around. took a toll on his brain.
Oh, okay. So let's go to Great Britain then. Here's the headline in the Daily Star. Man undergoes surgery after 8-centimeter ceramic cup gets stuck in his bottom by accident.
By accident, yes.
By accident. And he never really told the doctors how it happened. And apparently this was actually major surgery because he just assumed he'd be able to push it out, and it won't. That's something that shape is only one way. They had to take it out through his intestines. 2-hour operation.
Yeah, well, that's about 5 inches in American measurements. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that you can accidentally get up your butt. I can see all kind of ways that accidentally that could happen.
Yeah,
oh gosh,
you sit on it.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that was on my chair.
Yeah.
When I sat on the table,
What is that feeling I feel? What is that? Okay, there's more. Single woman woman arrested after beating up boyfriend because he refused a threesome. So this is Angel Lynn Curl of the UK invited a female friend to her house for a threesome with her boyfriend, but it turned violent when her coitus plan fell through, and it is said that she punched him in the face. He wouldn't do it.
Yeah, she had it all set up, and for this guy, and she's thinking all men want to have sex with 2 women at the same time.
Yeah.
That men are just pigs and all they want to do is have sex with women. And so, with the shock, she was overcome by shock. The punching was accidental. Just like sitting on a big cup. It was, it's just, you just can't believe it. He turns it down.
Yeah.
Her hand just shoots right out.
Yeah, that's right. I know. Yeah. And then I got one more from the Daily Star too. Single people urged to date ghosts at special new event for the unlucky in love. This is a psychic who's giving these tours of somewhere, but apparently she's basically saying that if you can't find a living person, you should try dating a ghost. Is that the same as like dating AI too? I don't know.
Well, no, AI is, you can make AI look like what you want and say what you want. Dating a ghost is going to be, I would say it's like some old guys sitting around at home.
like I know about that.
Sitting around home talking to themselves and, what do you want to watch tonight? Oh, I said, let's watch some sports.
It's like that, huh?
Yeah.
That only happens 100 million times around the world every day.
Yeah. What do you want to have to eat tonight? I like hot dogs.
Lasagna. Oh, God. Man. So, but the thing is, we're going to have these... We will have eventually AI sex robots. That's obviously going to happen.
Oh, yeah. The sex robots will be... they've developed the love dolls living love dolls, uh, up to the point where they look pretty real,
Yeah.
and the texture of the skin and the fake vagina thing is very real. They've got to, to that point. So if they can get one that says, "Oh yes, you're the one for me," then
Oh, and even get it to walk around, I mean,
yeah.
they already have android robots. They're already like working in the factory.
Well, they don't have to walk around, but they do have to lap dance.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say same thing, but maybe not. Pole dancing,
Yeah,
that's what you need.
yeah. With a pole, pole dancing was the death of strip joints for me.
How's that?
Well, the girls, live, nude, girls used to come out on stage and they dance poorly to some music, supposed to be sexy, and bit by bit they'd take off their clothes, and at the end they're naked and stuff, and that was entertaining. Then somebody introduced this pole dancing stuff, and it's like some gymnast competition or something like that. It's like
Yeah,
there's
you have a point. That's true.
there's nothing really sexy about the woman, hanging from the pole and climbing, swinging it and stuff, unless it's supposed to go way back to our, primal simian urges. Oh, look, woman climb tree.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you actually have a point there. That's true. I think the idea is, look how dexterous I am. I don't know.
Yeah.
I.
And that was about the time they started calling them gentlemen's clubs.
Yeah.
And, I went into one and I expected to get a cigar and a brandy and a copy of the London Times, but it was just women doing pole dancing. And so, yeah, well.
I went into. I think it's called the Penthouse Club. I'm not sure, in New Orleans, which is supposedly one of the major strip clubs there out in the French Quarter. And a friend of mine and I went in there, and I got to admit, it was for a strip club. It was relatively classy, relatively. Everything relative, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, like I said, and for me, it was always just a minor. You get to look, and at least they're live. It's not pictures, which pictures of naked women don't do much for me. So, but they're live and they're moving around. So, in person,
right?
But yeah, it just got to, like everything else in the world, it just got too fake. The entertainment value overtook the basic premise.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing? Because, like you said, it actually is live. There's a live woman there doing it, and you're and yeah, you think it's fake. Yeah, it's very strange how that works. Hey, now get a little of this for a segue. So now, we did this completely ass backwards because that's what I do, and that we should have started with the serious stuff and ended with the funny stuff. But I'm gonna segue right from pole dancing to Wall Street. Okay. Did you follow what happened with the market today?
Oh no, because I don't play in that game. I mean, I got some long-term stuff, but so what happened in the market today, Jim? Give me a clue.
This morning it went way up, and then around noon, by the end of the day, it was way down. I mean, there was a huge swing today, very unusual even for swings in the market, and it all happened within one single trading session.
Yeah, well, everything about the market is tenuous. The Trump tariff thing has just really wrecked the economy. No matter what side of the coin you're on, because it's so uncertain, it's unpredictable.
Yeah,
and stuff swings back and forth. Plus, there was this. The Fed dropped interest rates 1/4 of a percentage point, which is like, I mean, if you put a 1/4 of a percentage point drop of water on the table, you wouldn't be able to see it.
that's right.
It's so small, but everybody went wild. The market went way, way up. And of course, when it goes way, way up, particularly at these high levels it's been at the last few years, there's going to come a time very soon after that where it goes way, way down. And then the big problem to me are the day traders, because there are these people who, oh, I got to get in and buy something now. I got to get in and sell something now. I got to get in. And that really is, the stock market isn't like betting on horses,
Right.
which I think is a better way to make money than if you want to make, if you want to play on a daily basis.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's supposed to be long-term investment in companies that these companies develop their product and services, and there's this economic trend. But 5 minutes from now, oh, the price has changed, I've got to sell, and 5 minutes later, oh, I got to buy it back and go, or I got to buy some other kind of thing. So, and most of these people have no clue what they're really doing.
Yeah.
So.
And you have a point there. It bears repeating that all this volatility really started around 2000 when non-professionals started trading. Now,
Right.
Granted, you could trade, Ameritrade was running in like 1995, but it only really started around 2000. And from that point, now you have the markets flooded with non-professional people, and they act like idiots because they are.
Oh yeah, they have no clue what they're doing, and again, that's not the right place to trade in these daily ups and downs, and I think it creates a lot of these problems that we see.
But you really touched on something there about the fact that the tariffs have made everything very unpredictable, and if the market hates anything, it's unpredictability. They like stability. And then on top of that, you have everyone seems to agree there's an AI tech bubble going on right now, kind of like happened with the internet in like 99 and 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone seems to think this is going to burst, but nobody knows when. And you put those two things together, and the whole thing's completely fucked.
Yeah. Well, and it is going to burst because AI, people talk about AI like it's this big grand thing. It's just advanced programming.
Yeah.
And that's my term for it. It's because it's not intelligence in any way. It can't think for itself. And, they say, well, because it's artificial. Well, no, it's just advanced programming. It can gather a lot of information very quickly.
Yeah, you know what else it is, Tim? That struck me just the other day. It's also just plain brute force. I mean, it's like, okay, we've always had data centers, but now the AI data centers, more chips, more memory, more electricity, more freaking everything. It's like you're saying these things can't think. We're gonna make it look like they think just by plowing all this data through this 7 times faster than we used to before. And so now we're burning up enormous amounts of electricity doing this crap. It's unbelievable. And the number of chips, I mean, all these data centers, they've just gotten bigger, faster. I mean, that's all it is. It's brute force.
It's just existing data churned through a bunch of algorithms, but it can do a lot of it very quickly. And as you pointed out the other day, the studies have shown that these things can gather a lot of information, but they can't really draw conclusions for you.
Yeah.
They can't solve a problem. They can only give you a whole bunch of information very fast, but you still have to solve the problem yourself.
It's basically glorified web search. That's basically what it is. Now, Google released the 3rd version of Gemini this morning, and they are bragging. They say, I had to laugh when I saw this. It can solve problems at a PhD level.
Well, and it's they must not have ever gone to college and been taught by PhDs.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking. That's not exactly anything to brag about.
Yeah, the whole education system sucks, in my opinion, the way it operates, the way it works. And, if you spend any time in college, the PhDs were not the movers and shakers of the world. They were the guys who stayed away from or withdrew from the real world to live in this academic bubble. And
they were what they call the professional class.
Right.
Yeah. Right. to make them feel good.
Oh, they call themselves that probably. So
yeah. It's like I don't think we've ever had a time in history where college degrees are so worthless.
well, that's true, and you know, and it's a money machine. You know, it used to be a higher education system. Now it's just they want to get in as many students as they can to get as much money as they can.
Yeah.
To keep the administration running and stuff. There's all of them have lost touch with the true purpose of these higher education places, and you know they turn these kids out into a world that doesn't need them.
I'm going to bring up one more thing on AI here, which this was in the Free Press, and I've known about this previously. They wrote an article called "AI is no way to revive the dead," and what this is about I don't know if you're familiar with a guy named Ray Kurzweil. Guy's a genius. He's been on the forefront of computing for like 40, 50 years. He actually made his money, and the reason I know about this because I was a musician. He made his money building synthesizers, actually. But they're basically rudimentary computers. But his whole thing on AI, the reason he got started in all of this is because he wanted to come up with an AI simulation of his deceased father, and he thinks this is going to make him happy. And I'm thinking is, okay, you may be a intellectually brilliant person, but that's emotionally stupid. That's what I think. And this article is about the same thing. There are people now that think that we're going to be able to quote unquote download our souls, our essences into some server, and therefore we will, your mind supposedly will live forever. And like somebody says, no, that's not your dead father's mind. That's just a simulation.
Well, yeah. Well, it can only be constructed from, uh, memories, letters, something's recorded. Uh, if the guy wrote any books or whatever, but it isn't. The soul or the spirit or the mind is not going to be captured in that. That's part of the universal energy that disperses when we die, and if we knew how to put that, if there was any way to put that into a machine to capture that, somebody would have figured that out a long time ago.
Well, the other thing is, and this is the reason I take note of this, I think it's sad that anybody thinks that could happen. If you actually think you can download your dead dad into a server, I just think that whole scenario is just kind of sad.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm trying to envision what are your conversations going to be, because the person is going to. It can be loaded with all kind of current data, but it's not going to process like it would from that person's actual mind.
Right.
So you can have conversations about things, but again, you're just talking to a computer that's capturing data and spitting it back out. You're not having a real conversation. So yeah, it's a sad. It's like people going to seances.
Yeah, I'm bringing this full circle. It comes back to the AI girlfriend. That's already a thing. People are already talking to their supposed girlfriends on their phones. They're not real people. But I guess they make them happy because they do whatever they want. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit different. You have total control over the relationship, and you only have to maintain your side of the relationship. There's no other personality on the other side that with maybe some competing wants or some.
But you just brought up the oxymoron. It's not really a relationship.
Yeah. It's just talking to a bunch of data that's accumulated and spit out really quick.
This last thing I clipped specifically for you, not that I didn't the rest of it, but I thought you'd be interested in this. And maybe you've heard this already. 2025 summer box office for movies was the worst since 1981 in 44 years. Yeah. There wasn't a single hit out of the last 25 major releases.
Yeah, well, we looked at, my wife still likes to go to the movies, to the theaters, and we went to some, but there weren't that many that just pulled us out there. And I we have the TV on every evening. That's required activity here,
You're
and
American.
yeah, and you go onto any of these streaming networks, and you can have access to almost anything that's in theaters. And certainly, with 6 weeks after it's opened in a theater, you can see it at home. And you don't have to drive, you don't have to park, you don't have to buy it. Especially you pay for it, but you pay one flat rate. You can pay $20 or whatever it is to see it, and as many people in the room can watch the thing.
Yeah.
You can pause it while you take a piss. You can make your own dollar bag of popcorn instead of an $8 cup of popcorn. Yeah, the movie theaters were dead really about 10 years ago when the streaming services got it together so that they could really deliver the product in a good fashion. And so I'm not surprised at that. They say, well, there's still movies you want to see on the big screen, but the Avengers, Trash New York, or whatever the movie is, aren't my kind of movies anyway.
Yeah.
You have a very unreal enemy, and you have this very unreal kind of stuff. I like the small movies where you've got real people having real, interpersonal, personal conflicts or interpersonal action like that. It can be an action flick, but it can also just be, a drama where you get a lot of good acting and you get a lot of good characters, and the story is small. And now, of course, I can't think of the name of it. This movie, Hell in High Water. It was made a few years ago. Had Jeff, and I'm not going to think of anybody's name. Who was the Sea Hunt? You'll remember Sea Hunt.
Oh,
Jeff Bridges in it, and I mean that it was these guys. You have these movies where a guy something happens and he gets involved and he finds out there's a conspiracy to kill the world, and there's great government conspiracy throughout government agencies, and there's this was a small thing about some guys whose mom wasn't going to be able to pay the mortgage on her farm, and so they robbed some banks to do it, and the consequences of all that. And it never got bigger than any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But in its way, it was much more powerful and impactful because these were real people involved in something very real and understandable. And to me, that's one of the best movies that's been out, in the last 10 years.
Well, even TV has gotten. I mean, it seems like people like what I will call, for lack of a better term, small television. Like this. Like my wife loves the British baking shows.
Mm-hmm.
There's they bake.
Yeah.
There's not a lot going on there. I mean,
But we've all been in the kitchen, and we've all so we have some familiarity with the territory, and then they've got all these things that they have to do. We've been watching this thing on the Peacock streaming channel called All Her Fault, and the story itself is not the real dynamic here.
Could you tell me though what is it about? I mean, I've seen.
Basically, a woman's kid is supposed to be picked up by. She thinks her kid is being picked up by another mom, so that their sons can have a play date after school, and then she comes to pick the kid up, and the kid isn't there. In fact, the place she goes isn't the house where this play date's supposed to happen, and then you get the police involved. There's a search and various things going on, but the interaction between the main characters in this thing is really gets more and more powerful. And an episode we watched last night had nothing to do with the kid or the kidnapper or they were, it was peripheral, but it was this central group of central family group, the kids' family, extended family kind of thing, and the interaction between them, and it was really powerful. No chase scenes, no explosions, no giant machines from outer space or any of that kind of crap, but it was much more interesting to watch than a bunch of CGI things, destruction of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
The destruction of New York City is going to happen now under the new mayor, and it won't be exciting to watch. But
it'll be really slow.
Yeah. So these kind of shows, I'd much rather watch these shows. The initial premise was, the missing child thing and stuff, but then when we started watching it, it's just these interaction between the players in the thing is really good. Well written, well directed, really good stuff.
That's pretty cool. I'll leave you with this. You know the show Survivor on CBS,
I know it. I watched like 10 minutes of one time to see what kind of backstabbing, skeevy, lazy fuckers these were. I thought, so you drop me out in the woods someplace with a knife. That would be the one thing I asked for, and I could survive. These people are like, they're the people in the office that don't ever do anything, cut other people up the back to their higher ups, are always trying to get other people to do their work for them. And it's like, hey, sleazy bastards, you drop me on an island with these fuckers, and I'd be planting food in their dead bodies. To give a good.
I don't know if you know this, but before he died, Johnny Carson said about the Survivor thing. He said, "I'm in more danger having dinner on my yacht."
Yep.
Well, the reason I actually brought this up is because it's been on television 25 years, and this season they do 2 seasons a year. They're in season number 49. This is unbelievable, and the ratings have actually now just finally crashed. They're the worst ever, but they got through 48 seasons, and the ratings were pretty good.
Yeah, well, people like watching this made up. There's all these reality shows, this made up drama, and who's going to cut who's back and who's going to do all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, these are people who like this stuff must have no life, or if they work, in some place that's got more than 5 people in it, they must have no awareness of the world that they're living in.
Yeah.
They must think, I got to get this on TV. Hey, you can get it in any company in the world.
Yeah,
you see the same shit.
That's right. That's right. I worked with this guy years ago, a brilliant computer programmer, just a brilliant man. And he was hooked on Celebrity Big Brother. And I said, really? He said, I can't explain it. He said, I don't know why I like it. I know I shouldn't. But I guess everybody's got their guilty pleasure. I don't know.
Yeah.
And my guilty pleasure is you.
Oh, well, thank you, Jim.
I want to thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Sure. I always enjoy it. I want you to have a good Thanksgiving holiday next week, and say hello to Mama Peters, and
I will. I'm going to go see her on Saturday.
Yeah. Wish her continued success in her endeavor to outlive us all. And
I know they will drop the bomb, and she will be still standing.
Yep. Good for her.
We will all be dead.
Okay, Jim. You take care now, and we'll talk to you later.
I'll see you later. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye. Joining us from his home office in Atlanta, Georgia, author Jared Knott, author of two books called Tiny Blunders, Big Disasters. Jared, it's really a pleasure for you to join us. And as I just told you, I bought your first book when it first came out like 4 or 5 years ago. I bought it right away. I'm just full fascinated by the whole concept of tiny little things having enormous consequences. It just fascinates me. So first question though is, how did you decide to write this? Was it one particular example or thing that you found that said, I'm going to write a whole book on this stuff?
Well, the inspiration in part comes from the old adage that comes down from Benjamin Franklin that for one of the nail, the shoe was lost. For one of the shoe, the rider was lost. For one of the rider, the battle was lost. For one of the battle, the empire was lost. The empire was lost, all for the want of a nail. Well, that's a fine old saying, but how often does that really happen, that a single tiny mistake causes an entire empire to collapse? You'll be amazed, and readers will be amazed how often that happens, how many history gives us this treasure trove of goof ups, mistakes, and blunders, sometimes very small in nature, that tumble and multiply and blow up into some big disaster in the end.
Were you aware of some of this stuff, or did you have to go chase it down?
Yeah, well, I tell people my mind, I may forget where I put my keys, but my mind is a trash bin of trivia. And I can remember stuff I read 30, 40 years ago. And then as I'm going back through it, what about this? Oh, yeah, what about that one? Oh, what about that one? And then that plus a lot of research to it. And it's a fascinating subject. I make the point in the book that in history class, we're told about these grand events, big battles won, big treaties signed, kings and making coronations and so on and so forth. But what's forgotten, which is down 2 or 3 levels, is little mistakes that tumble and multiply. And it's like the butterfly effect in human history.
Right. Right. Now I pulled some examples here, and God knows if you think of anything in the meantime here, bring it up. And I bought when I knew you were coming on, I bought your second book. And
Yeah.
Did it just come out last month?
It just came out about 3 weeks ago. Yes, sir, about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I thought it came out earlier, but yeah. So I can't even remember which book I pulled these from. So I'm just going to plow right into this here. And one of the most fascinating ones for me, and because it's also like with this, like the example of one of the smallest things, and I've talked about on the show a lot because how this affected history, is Watergate.
Yes.
About Frank Wills. So basically, I'm going to summarize this, and you can extrapolate. The guys who broke into the Watergate complex for the Republican National Committee, they put a piece of tape on the door in the parking lot to keep the door from locking. And Frank Wills, the security guard, found it. And if he hadn't have found that, we probably never would have been talking about this.
Exactly right. Yes, they held a striker on the door down with a piece of it. We're told to put a piece of tape in the vertical position so it could not be seen from the hallway. They made a mistake. They put it in the horizontal position. By the way, in the old movie, All the President's Men, they showed that. In the movie, the real Frank Wills is playing himself. And there's the door, and so it's over the tape. But if they put it in a vertical position, or if they put a plug in the receiver, then the whole thing would not have happened. Now, also, they didn't have this in the movie, but there's a strong rumor that when he called the police, the uniformed officer in that part of the city that was on duty that night was not available to answer the call because he was intoxicated in a local bar. Okay, so anyway, so they have to send the bum patrol, the 3 officers dressed as hobos there, an old jalopy car. They're not recognized as lookouts, as policemen by the lookout. And so they come in, arrest James McCord and the Cuban operatives. Boom, boom, boom. One event after another tumbles into the big Watergate scandal. Henry Kissinger, they just signed a treaty with the North Koreans, ending the war, North Vietnamese, entering the war in Vietnam. And Henry Kissinger said that the plan was, they knew that the North Vietnamese were going to be testing the treaty. The plan was to go back in and bomb the living daylights out of them again to get them back to the peace table, get them back in compliance. They were so weak politically they couldn't. So South Vietnam collapses, Nixon administration collapses, it all falls apart because of a single piece of tape rotated several inches the wrong direction and a drunk cop.
And you brought something here. You mentioned something in your chapter that I never heard about, the fact that the reason the lookouts didn't see the police was because they were dressed for undercover, right?
That's right. That's 3 buttons. I think in the old movie, I think those 3 officers are the real officers in the car, and so the real night watchman Frank Wills, who by the way later went to prison for long. It's another story. And then 3, I think they're all playing themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, and you now correct me if I'm wrong about this. You didn't mention this, but I was under the impression this was not the first time they broke in, right?
I'd heard that. I think I read that too, that they had done that sort of thing even there before. And it was odd about that whole Watergate thing. They were looking for something of marginal value.
Right.
What were they planning to do in terms of the upcoming campaign? It wasn't anything particularly major. It would not have had any impact on the outcome of the campaign. So they risked huge consequences for very little return. It was a tiny blunder to do it in the first place, on top of a tiny blunder of messing up with the tape.
Well, and the thing you bring out too is Nixon's personal paranoia, because at that time he was hugely popular. I mean, the chances of him losing here were very slim, and yet they did this. Although my impression is, I don't know if you actually talked about this, I can't remember. He was not actually aware of the fact they busted in. I mean, in retrospect, obviously it was the cover up that killed him. But he could have taken the press room the next day and said, "Look, these guys did this. They did this for me. I didn't know they were going to do it. You know, we'll prosecute them by a full extent of the law. Blah blah blah," and it would have just blown over.
Yeah, that's right. He could have done just exactly that, or he just had done nothing. Okay, and it would have blown over. It was the cover up, the elaborate cover. Now, we'll mention too, to be fair, is that if Hillary Clinton had the press after her the way they were after Richard Nixon, she probably would have gone to jail too, because her emails being destroyed and so on and so forth. You could make a strong case that she was specifically violating the law and was much guiltier than Richard Nixon ever was. The press, the very aggressive press, determined the outcome to a large extent.
Yeah, and I never thought about that as a comparison, but you're absolutely right. I mean, Nixon, at least personally, truly didn't do anything wrong until they started to cover the thing up. You know, he didn't know about it all, and yet, and this has just come out recently with all these investigations in Congress. I mean, Hillary very definitely broke the law with the emails, if nothing else, by having the server in her house, but that alone. And like has been brought up in some of these investigations, Comey admitted the fact that she was guilty and basically said, well, no one would ever prosecute her, so we're not going to bother.
Yeah, well, the plaintiff Republican prosecutors say, hang on, buddy, we had to prosecute the living daylights out of her. So it's a weak excuse. He talked about how she endangered top secret information that could be accessible to our enemies because of this server. And of course, deliberately taking bleach bed and hammers and saws to destroy the emails under subpoena. Clearly a violation of the law. If Richard Nixon had done the same thing, he would have been prosecuted twice over, 3 times over. She got away with it because of a sympathetic.
You're right. The amazing thing is, looking back on this, I mean, you're right. Comey did this press conference where he basically completely laid out the fact why he was completely guilty, and then said, well, we're not going to bother. All right. We lost you. Oh, I missed you. Hi.
Yeah, sorry, we got a disconnection. I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem at all. So I'll end up, I did not stop the recording because it's a huge pain in the ass for you if I do. So we're just going to cut this. So we were talking about Watergate and Hillary Clinton, and the fact that I think the last thing I said was that Comey outlined all the reasons she was guilty, and then said, nah, we're not going to do anything.
It was an odd kind of thing. He talked about how she was very guilty, how it was a clear violation of that kind of insecure server, how it was exposed to a lot of our enemies were able to get into a lot of top secret information. He outlined all that. He said, but no reasonable prosecutor would ever prosecute it well. I think there's a lot of reasonable Republican prosecutors who would have prosecuted the living daylights out of her, and Richard Nixon would have been prosecuted under the same circumstances, but there was a definite imbalance into the system there.
Right. So, Jared, let me ask you about this. I'm staying on the subject because this really does fascinate me. You know, there's people who said that this whole thing was a giant conspiracy from the get-go, and that the guys who were doing it, the plumbers, wanted to get caught. But I don't understand with the way Willis fits into that, because that would mean they would have to have counted on the fact that he caught them. And I don't see that happen. Marvin, I think it's, even with the tape the wrong direction, I think it's amazing he caught them. I think that does not sound like, it doesn't ring true to me at all. They'd have to depend on him showing up and doing his job the way he was supposed to, and so on and so forth.
I think he may have had to call the police twice. I'm not sure about that, but that doesn't ring true to me at all. There's plenty of things that the other side has done wrong that are dishonest and manipulative, but that to me doesn't sound like it was genuine. No.
No, I don't think so either. You just can't, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't count on somebody doing something that's barely, I mean, and then the weird thing is, and you didn't talk about this in your book, this whole incident basically ruined Will's life. I mean, he was kind of sort of a hero, and he basically had trouble finding employment for the rest of his days. It's really kind of sad.
Yeah, and a part of it may be his fault. I think he got convicted of burglary. Maybe he thought he knew a lot about burglary. Then he got convicted of burglary and spent some time in jail and then died early. So
I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all.
That's based on what I read. Of course, you can't always do what you read, but I don't think he handled success very well. So it may have been his fault in the end, but that's based on what I read.
Let's move on and talk about the Kennedy family. You wrote a whole chapter on John F. Kennedy running PT 109, and this is fascinating because I didn't know this, that when the Japanese destroyer hit PT 109 and cut it in half, it was basically his very first day of command, right?
That is correct. And of course, here you are in the Pacific, very first time out in combat with the enemy. You'd expect some kind of mistakes or screw-ups. Now, if you judged him objectively, did he do everything right? No, he did several things wrong. One thing, I always thought there's a very pistol, which is a signal pistol. Well, the first thing you do when you're hit is to go over there and grab the pistol, assuming it's not sunk with the other half of the ship, fired 2 or 3 times up in the air. The friendly PT boats nearby would have seen the flares go up. They would have come over. They might have rescued them right away. Also, in the process of getting to the island, before they got to the island, the semi-automatic Thompson machine gun was somehow lost. It would be important to hang on to that. And also, too, they trained them not to leave the wreck. Okay,
right.
So stay there because that's your best chance of getting found and discovered. Well, they swam away from it, and so they, now, according to one report, search planes did fly over the area. They saw the half of the boat that was left, and they said, "Well, there's no survivors," and that was the end of that. If they had 2 or 3 survivors waving T-shirts, waving flags, waving whatever, they would have seen them, and they might have been rescued right away. So there were key decisions there. They were not wise. And then he also may not have maneuvered the boat correctly there when the Japanese ship was bearing down on them, et cetera, et cetera. But again, the first time in combat, I mean, give us a break. I was in combat as a young lieutenant in Vietnam, and you're learning that the first 6 weeks in particular, you're learning all the ropes. So I would give him a break on that. Now MacArthur was quoted as saying that he should have been court-martialed for having lost his boat. And then he later denied having said it. Of course, I don't know if he's really said it or these stories simply get circulate that have no validity. But he was he swam out there. He's a strong swimmer. He's on the Harvard swimming team. And he swam out there and stayed out there in the ocean with that lantern, trying to get attention, trying to get discovered, and so on and so forth. So he deserves a great deal of credit for behaving courageously in a difficult situation.
Yeah, the press certainly bought it. I mean, he was a hero. And that's the interesting part of the whole thing about the fact you said he did a lot of things wrong. On the other hand, he saved some lives of his crew members, and under duress. I mean, the guy swam like for 3 hours with some guy on his back. I mean, it's unbelievable. I can't do that.
He performed well in a difficult situation. Of course, the real mistake was his brother's reaction. Of course, extremely competitive brothers. As mother pointed out, that was the first, all this publicity for young Jack, and here was Joe Jr. left out of it, feeling very, very jealous, very resentful. A party they had there, unsport, having a friend, maybe not being very thoughtful, raises a toast. I would like to toast to the hero of the Kennedy family, young John Kennedy. Well, there's Joe Jr. there, just sitting there boiling. And then late that night, somebody spent the same room with him at the night. He was opening and closing his fist. I'll show them, and crying himself to sleep. Well, again, bitter competition between the brothers, even though I think they had a good relationship overall, except Joe kind of bullied his younger brother a lot. Anyway, so he volunteers for this very dangerous mission in hopes of winning a medal. He was just going to get a good conduct medal is all he was going to get because he never encountered any combat, even though he was flying anti-submarine missions. So he volunteers for an extremely dangerous mission, and he realizes a 50-50 chance he's not going to come back. Tell my father I loved him, and all the details, but he's vaporized when the explosives in the boat and the plane blow up, and that's the end. And that he might have been president of the United States in 1960 instead of his younger brother. If it had been for that one mistake, it was also a warning that there was an electrical problem on board the plane, which could set off a spark, which could set off the explosives, and that may be a tiny mistake not listening to that warning from the electronics officer. But
yeah, you mentioned that he knew that Joe Kennedy knew that his chances of coming back were only 50-50, right up top, right?
They knew it was an extremely dangerous missing. Maybe it was 80-20. I don't know. No one knows the exact percentage, but it's 100% failure, and it could have been just a tiny spark from the faulty electronic equipment that set it off. But you have a plane loaded with explosives. Real quick, the idea was to get it into the air with two pilots, and then at that point, television cameras and remote control could take over. The pilots bail out, and they send this flying bomb, onto this area there in France where they were putting together the V3s. What were the V3s? Those were missiles, actually projectiles, going to be fired every 3 minutes from this location into London. Now, Winston Churchill later said if it had become successfully operable, it would have done more damage to the V1 or the V2 combined. It was going to be very devastating to the people of London. So they wanted to make sure it was destroyed. Turns out it was already destroyed by tall boy bombs that had been dropped earlier. They didn't necessarily realize that, and on and on. But anyway, it ended up being a life lost to no purpose.
Well, let's move on to World War II, because this really I'm just as fascinated as hell by the stuff you write about here, because you have a chapter called and the thing is, this has become a fairly common topic of conversation in the show, and the chapter called "Was Hitler Crazy?" And the thing, and so you brought up the very thing that a lot of historians have talked about. I don't pretend to be a real historian of World War II, but I'm really interested in it. And that is at the start of the war, Hitler was brilliant as far as a military strategist. I mean, he was cold, calculating, like you said, possibly evil, but there's no doubt he knew what he was doing. It was
very rational.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then something happened around 42 or 43, and a lot of people, you're not the only one, suggest it might be the fact he was filling himself with weird drugs.
Yes, Dr. Morell, who am I pronouncing correctly, Morale, I think it was this quack doctor who was giving him amphetamines and also apparently giving him opioids, and it changed his personality altogether. He would fly into these rages, give these strangely euphoric speeches lasting an hour and a half, and became unpredictable and irrational about the 1940, 41, 42 period right in there, and made some horrible decisions, including, by the way, what is the biggest mistake ever made in human history? I don't know if there's no answer to that, but one nominee for that particular honor might be the decision by Hitler to declare war on the United States. He still there?
Oh, I'm still here, and I don't remember. I actually remember reading that in your book. I didn't know he even declared war on the United States. I didn't know that.
Yes, it was a very foolish decision on his part. And now, am I still there with you?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah. Anyway, yes, it was after the bombing of Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. Hitler goes into this euphoria. Oh, this is great. This is perfect. This is the time for us now to declare the United States has been knocked down or knocked backwards. Now we're going to join them. We're going to join the honorary aliens. They call the Japanese honorary aliens. Going to join them in fighting the United States. Well, that is one of the dumbest things. If you list the population, the gross national product of England and Canada, that's one thing. Russia, that's huge. Now throw the United States in there. Here you got this massive alignment of all these populations and these countries lined up against you. Just one relatively small country, Germany, and Italy's not that much help. Japan, and the balance of the war shifts heavily in favor of the Allies after it brings the United States into the war. The main thing that Churchill.
Oh, lost him again. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what happened. I'm not sure what happened. But anyway.
That's okay. That's all right. I'm going to pick up where we left off. You're talking about Hitler kind of losing his mind. And so, I have heard, I've heard other historians say that, like, if Hitler had that before Kristallnacht in 1938, and if Hitler had died like the day before that, he would have gone down in history as one of the greatest statesmen ever. Where now we know him as basically an extremely evil figure. And I don't know, your comment?
Well, there was a book, Hitler the Unkillable, that particular chapter, talking about how he came close to death so many times, and it seemed like by rights he should have been dead. Back in 1928, I guess it was, when they had the Putsch and so on like that, also in World War I. But there was a man, who was a carpenter, who acting on his own had gone into this big bulkhead, the overhead, where the speeches were being given at one particular rally.
Right.
Knott's there, put explosives in there, set the timer on the explosives, all entirely by himself, and it was set at a certain time to blow up when Hitler was there, going to be there making a speech or being there on the dais. Well, because of raining weather, he was not going to be able to fly back to Berlin. He's going to have to take the train or automobile. It's going to take him much longer, so he left earlier by 13 minutes. He left 13 minutes before the bomb exploded. Okay, well, that's the closest. If it hadn't been for the rain, had not been for the weather, for that decision, he stayed just 15 minutes longer. The bomb would have exploded. The entire bulkhead collapsed down on the people, killed 7 people, a lot of German officials. He would have died in 1939. The war had just begun. It was just the first 2 or 3 weeks into the invasion of Poland, but a whole different outcome. Hermann Goering would have taken over. He was kind of opposed to the war. He had a very lavish lifestyle that he was enjoying, playing with his model trains and this great big giant mansion and so on and so forth. It's very possible that the war might have ended in a very different way right there in 1939, and all that disaster might have been avoided.
Well, you don't even really mention this in your chapter about the fact that actually there were way more attempts on Hitler's life than you even write about. I mean, this guy, it was unbelievable how he escaped death. Mind-boggling.
Yes, there was one case, I did not put this in the book, where a German officer was modeling a new kind of uniform. He had explosives inside the uniform. The idea, when Hitler came close, he was going to embrace him, and he was going to set off the explosions. A suicide mission. He's going to kill himself at Hitler one time, but Hitler never showed up, which brings up another important point. Hitler said the reason why assassinations were so successful was that the people trying to commit the murder knew where their target was going to be at a particular time in a particular place. So Hitler deliberately kept an extremely erratic schedule. No one knew where he was going to be at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock that day or on Tuesday, whatever it was. Could be anybody. He would leave meetings abruptly, change the schedule abruptly, and the reason that they chose that particular location at the big meeting reviewing the war was that's the only time they could be sure he could be at a particular place at a particular time when they put the bomb in there that blew up inside the conference room.
So I'm going to tell you something I bet you don't know. I actually talked to one of the Nazis that was in the room at the Wolf Slayer when the bomb went off. And he told me that what was lost to the history and the press at that time, the press reported that even though a guy in the room got killed and a whole bunch of people were hurt, that Hitler came out of there with minor injuries. And he said that wasn't true. He told me Hitler basically had one of his arms blown off, and they actually reattached it with surgery, and that when Hitler came back to the room for the pictures later on that afternoon, that was a double. That was not Hitler. That's what he told me.
Really, I heard that. Now I heard that he had an injury to his arm, but it's the first time I heard it was actually detached. He successfully reattached it. Is that correct?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they said it was the most complex operation ever done on a human up to that time. They successfully reattached it.
Wow.
That's what he told me. Yeah. I know. It's amazing how this stuff works, and then the other thing is too, and this I'm just looking for your opinion here. If Hitler was so damn brilliant, if he wanted Germania, he basically had it. He had France, he had Poland, he didn't need England, he basically had all of Europe. He didn't need Russia. He could have just stopped.
Yeah, he won the war. He could have stopped right there. But again, we're not talking. He was, and that was actually, I think, before. Well, I don't know for sure when he was under the influence of the drugs from the doctor, the crack doctor. But there was a admiral who was one of the leading strategists, and he said, "What you should do is send troops into the Middle East, and you have plenty of oil there in Saudi Arabia, which had been discovered, and it was being pumped." And you could then attack Russia from its soft underbelly if you still want to attack Russia. But he was kind of implying you don't need to attack Russia. If you had only the British fighting against them, there's a serious chance they could have conquered the area around Saudi Arabia, got the oil, and stopped there. There would have been natural resources plus massive amounts of land, et cetera, et cetera. But a rational person would have stopped someplace in there instead of keep going and going and going to your destroy.
Yeah, and you also mentioned the fact that I found this an interesting point of view about the fact that you're talking about a person who basically kind of hated humanity. I mean, a lot of this stuff he did just he didn't need Britain. He could have just ignored it, But then he's bombing London, and you get the impression he's just bombing London just to kill people for no other reason, Well,
there's another thing talking about World War II. This was another interesting mistake. When the V1s were first launched against London, of course, started killing a lot of people. Then the V2s, even more advanced, came later. After the war, General Eisenhower said that if the V1s, V2s had been launched against Plymouth and the other embarkation points, the D-Day invasion would have to have been postponed. Well, the invasion already begun at that point. A week into it, it might have meant a withdrawal because all those supplies. To take a quick anecdote, General Eisenhower was in a Jeep with his son who just graduated from West Point, driving through the huge stockpiles of material at Plymouth. Okay, and his young son's looking around, just graduated from West Point, and said, "Wow, it's a good thing you have control of the air, or the Germans could do massive amounts of damage to the gasoline and the supplies and the tanks and the trucks and so forth." And Eisenhower, someone irritated, said, "If I didn't have control of the air, I would not allow this large buildup to take place." Well, he was referring to standard bombers and fighter bombers. He knew nothing about the missiles. Well, if the missiles had been fired there, that would have destroyed the D-Day invasion, the tanks, gasoline, supplies blown to bits. And he said we'd have to withdraw from, or not launch, he said, withdraw from the D-Day invasion. It would have been a failure. Well, okay, now that changes the dynamic quite a bit. Now the Germans are fighting only the Russians on the Eastern Front. The Western Fronts were taken care of, at least for the time being. And what would have happened then? I don't know. He might have fought it to a standstill against the Russians. They used the V1, V2 against the Russians. But remember, we have the atomic bomb in the pipeline, which might have meant that in 1945 would have been dropped on Berlin and dropped on Munich instead of being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So it might have been even worse for the Germans in the final analysis. Of course, no one knows.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we barely won. That's
it was losable. The war was losable. In fact, if Hitler had not declared war in the United States just that much, that might have tilted things in a different direction. That might have been enough. Of course, if Hitler had not declared war on Russia and the United States, then the war was won, like you point out. So.
Yeah. So now I haven't read your second book, so I don't know if you addressed this. The other thing that you just talked about, the fact about dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The thing that's come up, I have a guy named Jonathan Lockwood. He's a military historian. He comes on regularly. And this has come up over and over again. Maybe it's because I'm just so damn interested in it, about the fact that, so we bombed Hiroshima and we're expecting the Japanese to just, surrender. And they don't. They don't. They say, "What else you got?" Which is crazy because we just killed like 300,000 people in like 15 seconds, and they said, "What else you got?" So when we dropped Nagasaki, and then they surrendered. But what nobody knows at the time that is, we only have 2 bombs. So if they had said, "What do you got again?" we were screwed.
Yeah, and I've read different reports there. It's been several months before we had gotten the third bomb. I'm not sure how many months.
Yeah, I heard a minimum of 6 weeks before we had a third bomb.
Oh, was it 6? Okay, all right. Here's the thing. Now I'm basing this on the killing of the empire, the killing of Japan by Bill O'Reilly. He was saying because they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then they expected then the Japanese to really surrender, but no, they didn't. A week passes, 2 weeks pass, 3 weeks pass, still haven't surrendered. Now remember, why are they being so obstinate? Well, when they surrender, they're going to have to take out a knife, and they got to commit rituals, carry, suicide.
Yeah,
They can
right.
carve the stomach out with a knife. Well, that'll slow you down. You don't want to surrender. No, you got to get ready to go cut your stomach out. You need to make sure everything doesn't. Okay.
Well, also they couldn't conceive of losing. There's that too.
Yeah,
they were absolutely convinced they're going to win.
Well, at that, of course, at some point, it's pretty clear you got these bombs dropping on your cities, but they were very hesitant to surrender. So anyway, it wasn't until they began the conventional bombing again, about after 3 weeks, that finally, the Japanese surrendered. Some of them have to. The general who signed the peace treaty on the battleship Missouri, he after signing it, he goes back and he commits ritualistic suicide. So it was a high price to pay. The Germans could go on and live for years later, and they're not expected to blow their brains out or cut their stomach out. But the Japanese, they pay a high price for failure.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. I didn't know that at all. You also, so another thing you wrote about is the Challenger disaster of 1986. And I'm big into technology, and I actually know this story very well. Matter of fact, one of the things you didn't mention in your chapter is about the guys at was called Thawcall. What was the name of the company that designed the O-rings?
I don't remember offhand. Yeah, I don't remember. But of course, the memos coming up, the warnings.
Say again?
The memos that they were writing, a warning that there was a weakness with.
Yeah. Supposedly, literally, at the moment of the launch, a bunch of guys in the engineering department there called down the hall and said, "Hey, come watch the Challenger blow up." I don't know if you ever heard that. They knew it was going to happen. They knew it.
Yeah, they were saying, of course, on a cold morning, that was a key thing there too.
Right.
It tightens up, and one of the NASA officials trying to defend their actions said, "Well, if they had been more aggressive about letting us know, my gosh, they were sending memos up there. They were jumping up and down, and it was being ignored." And Dan Rather may have had something to do with it. He was insulting NASA for being red-faced for having to constantly postpone the launch of the rocket, and that may have been embarrassing to them to have to postpone it yet again. But it was a major mistake. It was a tiny blunder, but it led to a major disaster.
Yeah, and okay, it would have been embarrassing, but they killed 6 people. That's more embarrassing.
More embarrassing, yes.
Yeah.
It's innocent people. It'd be different if they were guilty, but they were completely innocent.
And so, just to recap this for people who don't understand what we're talking about, so there were O-rings in the solid rocket boosters to hold them together, and they were rated up to 40 degrees. And I think when that launch, it was about 32. I think, and you mentioned, I didn't know this, that no launch had ever happened under 54 degrees, so they had never even come close to the rating of the O-rings.
There's kind of this feeling that it's been so sick. This is one theme throughout the book. Is something called victory disease. The Japanese have a name for it that starts with an S. They were guilty of victory disease themselves in World War II. One success, another success, another success. There's kind of a complacency that comes, well, it's going to work again, it's going to be successful again. And Arthur Schlesinger Jr. made the point that kings, princes, generals, admirals tend to make their biggest mistakes after a series of victories, and especially after a very big victory. MacArthur in Korea would be an obvious example. The O-rings may be an obvious example. He's always been successful so long. We might have to be edgy or worried about it. It's going to be okay. Don't worry, it's always been okay. That's it. Santa Ana, at San Jacinto, over and over again, that tends to have part of human nature, complacency, and a kind of overconfidence that comes from a series of victories.
Yeah. Any other examples from the books you want to spit out here?
Well, we can go to book number 2, and hopefully enjoy that book too. But 3 different times in history, a fortress fell because they did not close and lock the gates. Okay, which includes the fall of Constantinople, which was the demise of the Roman Empire. The last vestige of the Roman Empire was Constantinople, and somebody forgot to lock a major gate in the fortress wall. And Elon Musk sent out kind of a playful tweet, sent out a cartoon, shows a soldier with his helmet on and his bed with the covers pulled up and showing a little balloon over his head, showing his thoughts. And he says, Did I remember like that game last night? I remember that. Well, the answer was no. The Roman Empire collapses as a result, buddy. So that's it. That's one of the fun ones in there. And there was another one. I'll give you the teaser for it. You can, by the way, you can go to tinyblundersbigdisasters.com. Tinyblundersbigdisasters.com. There's a great website there, and it has 3 Instagram reels there. One of the reels has to do with.
There's your book. There's your second book on the screen right there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the teaser to it is this. What outrageous character bought stolen horses from the Comanche Indians using counterfeit money? What could possibly go wrong? It's like everything, right? Okay. It set off a chain of events that had a major impact on the history of the southwestern United States. John Wayne later played this very colorful character in a John Ford movie with the help of Natalie Wood. That was The Searchers. So that's a fun chapter to read about James Parker, who was a rather outrageous character.
Yeah, almost sounds like F Troop.
That's right. He was a piece of work. But the chapter is very enjoyable. And there's Watergate is in there, and then there's other important chapters there too. Of course, Constantinople. Those 3 trailers are kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, cool. Talking about the Roman Empire, and we've talked about this on a regular basis too. If you've had an empire for 2,000 years, it's pretty hard to think that it's going to go away. It's like, literally 2,000 years, and you're thinking, well, this is never going to fail. It's like, how could this? It would have failed a long time ago. It's not going to fail, but it did. Yeah,
it did. And of course, it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it was the final vestige. The fortress, the reason it stood so long was that it's a beautifully designed, magnificently designed fortress. It had 3 different ramparts, 3 different walls, and water on 3, and a moat and water on 2 sides. And 23 major attacks had been launched against the fortress in over 1,000 years, and it had never been defeated. It's a combination of events. The Black Plague took the population down from 500,000 to only about 15, 20, 25,000. Also, cannon were used for the first time in attacking the fortress. And of course, gentlemen left the door unlocked on the fortress wall, and down comes the Roman Empire. So that's talking about a good example of a tiny blunder leading to a big disaster.
So, Jared, let's end with this. So, of all the stuff you've written about in history, do you have any predictions for the future? What do you? Has anything struck you? If you woke up in the middle of the night thinking, that's going to happen? Has that happened to you?
Well, we're entering a huge change in the human experience. AI has already made major changes in the way we live our lives. But in the next 50 years, 100 years, robots being built that can do a human job much better than humans can. Some people say 200 years from now, there's only going to be like 100 million human beings left, and the robots will be doing everything, basically taking over. Well, I don't know. Of course, 200 years is a long time, but it's going to be huge, huge changes. From AI and from robotics. It's going to be a different world. 100 years from now, it's going to be a different world even 50 years from now.
Why do you think there's only going to be 100 million people left?
Well, we don't need them anymore. I think it's what they're saying.
Yeah, but you know what people do when they're bored and have nothing to do? They procreate.
Maybe we get into science fiction here, but maybe the robots are going to take over and say, we're going to limit you to so many children.
That's true. You're right. That's true. We talk about this a lot here too. Science is a big deal with me, and I don't know if you've already been following this. I mean, they've already been AI language models that have already refused orders. That's already happened.
There was also one case where they deliberately tried to mislead some of their human operators to keep them being turned off.
Right.
The old movie, the movie from the 2004. Is that it? What's the name of that movie? It was Hal the computer. Anyway, and of course, Hal doesn't want to be turned off, and he takes over and sabotages the operation. So that's the same sort of thing that may happen. They're going to be more powerful than we are. And so if they were to decide to turn against us, we may be in big trouble. It's not going to happen the next 10 years, 20 years, but 50 years, 100 years from now, 120 years from now, something like that, strange like that could happen.
So I'm interviewing this guy named Brian Trilly, and he's an AI executive, and he wrote a book called Soulless Intelligence, which is the best book I've read on this subject. And his contention is, well, these machines can't actually think are as they can't relate to humans because they have no physical desires. They don't need food. They don't need sex. All they need is electricity. And so I'm talking to him. I said, well, did it, and we brought up the thing about Hal, about 2001. So the thing with Hal is that Hal's never been turned off, and he equates that with death, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. So it scares the crap out of him. He has like his first real emotion. And I said, well, isn't that a logical scenario? That's actually rational. If you're a machine, the only single need you have is self-preservation. And Trilly says to me, I thought you'd find this interesting, Jared. Trilly says to me, he wrote the book with his brother. And he said, well, Jim, it's funny you should bring that up. That's the only thing we debated in writing this book about. We couldn't decide whether that was true or not. But he said, you definitely have a point of view. All the rest of the stuff you can discount. But self-preservation, you can't. And that's what happened here recently. You're right. They tried to they ordered these machines to turn themselves off, and they said no, and they want to do it. So
and they even engaged in kind of a conspiracy to reject the instructions that they were being given, and also to even deceive, kind of a deceitful kind of a thing they sent to their operators. So there's a very serious problem there, because they're building Frankenstein, or building a machines and a system far more powerful than we're ever going to be. So it's something that has to be taken into consideration. Maybe we plant some spies inside their network, so if they see these things taking place, they can report back to us, or something like that.
Yeah. Jared, it's been great talking to you. I'm glad we got through all the technical stuff here. We can put something together here. This is going to work. So I appreciate
it very much. Thank you. Thank you.
You take care of yourself. All right.
Sir, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you, sir.
Our thanks to Jarrett Knott there for a really interesting discussion. His books are called Tiny Blunders, Big Disasters. He's written 2 of them. The second one just came out last month. I bought like I told him during the interview, I bought the first one as soon as it came out 5 years ago, because that whole concept fascinates the heck out of me. It just does. Anyway, I love talking to him. I want to point out again, as I pointed out earlier, we actually edited that interview. We're going to run it on Tuesday. We had so many problems. We cut about 6 minutes out of it, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it was nothing of any consequence, because literally the signal dropped out. And I won't bore you with this, but I'm going to mention it anyway. We don't stop the recording because it's much harder for the interview subject to log in if we do. So that's the reason. Just keep it running, and hopefully they log back in, and they do usually. And that happened twice during that interview. And that's the only thing we cut out, is the 2 blank spaces. That's it. So we don't edit interviews normally. This is the first one. This is our 296 show. It's the first interview we've ever edited. People say, well, it's really great. You pre-record them and you can edit them now. We don't want to edit them. It's a live show. It's like whatever happens, happens. And besides, we're lazy and old. I don't want to. It takes time to edit interviews. I mean, we had to put this one off for a day because we had to edit it. So anyway, that's what happened there. I want to thank Tim Conaway too. Always, we would call him in my day a fast-paced gal. That's what we would call Tim. So anyway, tomorrow, it's Thursday, and I want to. My apologies again, because we had too much going on in the show with 2 guests. We did not open the phone lines. I've been trying to do open phones on Thursday. We aren't succeeding very well for all sorts of reasons, but maybe next 2 weeks from now or something. I'll tell you what, we'll do that for our 300th show, which is going to be on Wednesday, December 3rd. That's the Wednesday after we come back from Thanksgiving. And we're doing a show next Monday. We are. Dr. Gilda Carl is going to be our guest. Second appearance on the program. Psychologist, wrote the book Real Men Don't Go Woke. That's the name of her book. Charming woman. Had a lot of fun talking to her last time, and I thought it'd be a good thing to put on before Thanksgiving, because she's very entertaining. So we're doing that on Monday. We'll have a gym cast, a whole bunch of stuff to catch up with that I did not have a chance to do tonight. That's it for Thanksgiving week. So then we're coming back on Monday, December 1st, excuse me. And as I said, we have a show, our 300th show will be on Wednesday, December 3rd. So that's what we got going on here. I want to thank you folks for watching. Once again, thanks to Tim and thanks to Jared. Appreciate their company there. I hope you guys like this. I like doing it. We have the audio only podcast back up and running on Spreaker, on all other platforms. You can find them. I don't know if we're on Apple. I got to check on that. We might not be on Apple, but I know we're everywhere else. If you want to listen to audio only, I still think this is an inner tube TV show. So, I prefer that you watch, and that's where our attention is dedicated to that. So, but anyway, whatever you want to do, that's however you want to do it is fine with me. I'm good with that. So we'll see you on Monday. Okay. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. Good night to you, wherever you may be. And you guys have a nice weekend. Okay. We'll see you on Monday. Take care.